1. Let me tell you about this interesting 1969 Chevy C10 I found on Craigslist for $19,000. This classic pickup is rocking a 5.7-liter V8 under the hood, paired with a manual transmission, which is always fun for those who love to be more engaged with their driving experience. The truck's got a custom paint job and shows 99,789 miles on the odometer, which isn't too bad for a vehicle that's over 50 years old. What's particularly cool about this one is that it's a 4WD model, which wasn't super common for C10s of this era. The seller states it's in good condition and is road ready. Plus, it's got that classic bench seat that can fit 3 people, just like these trucks were meant to have. The clean title is definitely a plus, suggesting no major accidents or title issues in its history. At $19,000, you're looking at a price that's in the ballpark for a well-maintained '69 C10, especially considering it's a 4X4 model. While it might not be the cheapest C10 out there, these trucks have been steadily gaining value in the classic market. Just remember, as with any classic vehicle, you'll want to do a thorough in-person inspection to verify its condition, and maybe bring along a mechanic who knows these old Chevys. If everything checks out, this could be a solid buy for someone looking for a classic truck with some practical utility. 2. Let's talk about this 1981 Chevy K10. I found listed for $8,000. I've got to be straight with you. This one's a bit of a project. While the seller lists it in good condition, they're also upfront about the engine needing work, and you'll need to arrange transportation since it's not driving out under its own power. The truck's got some interesting specs. It's equipped with the 4.1L inline-6 engine, which is actually a pretty reliable motor when running right, paired with a manual transmission and 4WD setup. The odometer shows just 28,685 miles, but with these older trucks, it's always wise to assume it's rolled over at least once. It's wearing a red paint job and comes with a clean title, which is at least one less headache to worry about. Being completely honest here, $8,000 feels a bit steep for a non-running K10, even in today's market. These trucks are desirable, sure, but you're looking at some serious engine work right off the bat. If you're handy with a wrench and love these old square-body Chevys, it might be worth trying to negotiate the price down. Just remember to factor in both the transport costs and the engine repair expenses when considering this purchase. These K10s make great project trucks, but you've got to go in with eyes wide open on this one. 3. Let's talk about this 1965 Ford F100 that's popped up on Craigslist for $11,800. This is one of those classic workhorses that Ford really got right, and this particular example seems to have some genuine appeal. The truck's packing the legendary 300 cubic inch inline-6 engine. And let me tell you, these engines are known for being virtually indestructible. Paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, it's got that pure mechanical feel that classic truck lovers really appreciate. The seller mentions it runs extremely well, which is always good to hear with these old trucks. Now, let's be real about the mileage. The odometer shows 100,000 miles but is rolled over, so we're looking at 200,000 plus actual miles. But here's the thing with these old Fords. When maintained well, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. The seller emphasizes it's very clean and very original, which is increasingly rare for these mid-60s trucks. At $11,800, you're in the ballpark for a well-maintained '65 F100, especially if it's as clean as described. The fact that the seller wants serious inquiries only and prefers direct contact over emails suggests they know what they have. These trucks have been climbing in value, and finding original running examples is getting harder. 4. Let's be completely honest about this 1983 Ford F250 listed for $2,600. This one's definitely a project truck, and there are some red flags we need to talk about. First off, despite the seller listing it in good condition, this truck isn't running. It's got a 351 Windsor V8 that cranks but has no spark. That's your first project right there. It's a 4X4 model with an automatic transmission, which would be great if it was running. The long bed 3/4 ton configuration is desirable, but here's where things get tricky. There's no clean title. Instead, there's a military certificate of ownership that was signed improperly. That's going to be a headache to sort out in most states. Being straight with you here, $2,600 feels pretty steep for a non-running F-250 with title issues, even in today's market. While these old Ford trucks are solid platforms for restoration, and the 351W is a great engine when running, you're looking at electrical work at minimum, possible major mechanical work, and the hassle of sorting out the title situation. If you're considering this truck, you might want to research your state's title requirements for military vehicles first, and maybe use the title issues as a negotiating point. This could be a decent project for someone who knows their way around both wrenches and paperwork, but go in with your eyes wide open. You're buying a project, not a driver. 5. Let me tell you about this 1978 Chevy C10 I found on Craigslist for $14,950. This is one of those iconic square-body Chevys that's been catching everyone's attention lately, and it's easy to see why these trucks have such a following. This particular C10 comes with a V8 engine and an automatic transmission, making it a comfortable cruiser. The odometer shows 117,951 miles, which isn't too bad for a 45-year-old truck. It's wearing a blue paint job and comes with a clean title, which is always a plus with classics. The seller's just done a fresh oil change, showing some recent maintenance. Being located at a dealership in Burnsville suggests this isn't your typical barn find. It's likely been cleaned up and checked over. The seller mentions lots of potential, which could mean it's a solid platform for either restoration or customization, something these C10s are famous for. At $14,950, you're in the mid-range market for these trucks. Square body prices have been climbing steadily, but you'll want to inspect it thoroughly in person. These third-gen C10s are known for their durability and straightforward mechanics, plus they've got that classic styling that just keeps looking better with age. 6. Let's talk about this 1965 El Camino that's up for grabs at $15,500. This is one of those cool car-truck hybrids that Chevy absolutely nailed in the 60s, and this one's got some interesting upgrades worth discussing. Let's be upfront. The odometer's broken, showing 58,000. So we're dealing with unknown actual mileage here. But here's where it gets interesting. The owner's done some serious mechanical work. We're looking at a rebuilt 350 V8 paired with a 700 R4 transmission. That's a solid modern upgrade from the original powertrain. The 700 R4 gives you better highway cruising capability. And with that B&M floor shifter, you've got better control over the gears. They've addressed several key mechanical areas. New oversized radiator, great for cooling that 350. Rebuilt suspension, new hay distributor, more reliable ignition. Rebuilt Holley carb with an Edelbrock setup, plus fresh plugs, wires, tires, and brakes. The racing bucket seats are a nice touch for better support, though purists might want the original bench. The seller's honest about some body repair needs, but describes it as minimal and encourages buyers to check the pics. The big plus here is that it's described as very dependable and ready to drive anywhere. That's important for a classic you actually want to use. 7. Let's talk about this 1984 Ford F-150 that's popped up on Craigslist for $6,800. This is from that classic boxy era of Ford trucks that just seems to get more appealing with age. The seller's got this listed as a good condition truck with a V8 engine, likely the 302 or 351, paired with an automatic transmission and 2 WD setup. They're claiming 65,000 miles on the odometer, which seems pretty low for a nearly 40-year-old truck. Might want to verify if that's original mileage or if it's rolled over once. Being completely honest here, $6,800 is in the reasonable range for a well-maintained 84 F-150, especially if that mileage is legitimate and the truck's as solid as described. These old Fords are known for their durability, and they're getting harder to find in good, original condition. The seller's pitching it as both a collector's piece and a potential daily driver, which could work. These trucks were built to last and are generally pretty simple to maintain. The clean title is definitely a plus, and being a 2WD model means there's less complicated machinery to worry about underneath. 8. Let's talk about this 1975 GMC K2500 that's up for $8,000. I've got to be straight with you about this one. It's got some character. And by character, I mean rust, particularly in those front fenders and doors, which is pretty typical for these old trucks. But here's the good stuff. It's running a 400 cubic inch small block V8, which is paired with the bulletproof TH400 automatic transmission, and what the seller believes is an NP205 transfer case. That's some seriously robust drivetrain hardware. The seller's using it as a daily driver around town, which tells us it's not just a pretty paperweight, it's a functioning truck. They've done some recent maintenance with new tires and front brakes, which is always good to hear. The odometer shows 100,000 miles, but with these old trucks, it's always wise to assume it's rolled over at least once. At $8,000 OBO, you're looking at a fair price for a running and driving Classic 4X4, even with the rust issues. These trucks are getting harder to find, especially ones that are still being used as intended. The clean title is a plus, and the seller seems pretty straightforward about the truck's condition. If you're considering this one, you'll want to get under it and really check out how extensive that rust is. Sometimes what starts in the fenders and doors can spread to more crucial areas. But if the rust isn't structural and you're okay with some patina, this could be a solid work truck or project vehicle. Just remember to negotiate that or best offer price based on the rust repair you'll need to tackle. 9. Let me tell you about this 1980 Chevy El Camino that's listed for $7,500. This is from the later generation of El Caminos when they had that distinctive, more squared-off look compared to their earlier cousins. The seller's got this one sporting a rebuilt V6 engine, not the more common V8 you typically find in these, paired with an automatic transmission. It's showing 65,482 miles on the clock and comes wearing what's described as an orange paint job. The seller mentions good tiers, they mean tires, and they're offering delivery, which is a nice bonus if you're not local. Being honest here, $7,500 for a V6 El Camino from this era is in the middle range. These typically command less than their V8 counterparts. However, a rebuilt engine could justify some of that price if the work was done properly. The clean title is definitely a plus, and if that mileage is genuine, it's relatively low for a 43-year-old vehicle. These later El Caminos are interesting vehicles. They're not as sought after as the earlier models, but they're still unique and have their own following. They make great daily drivers or weekend cruisers, and parts availability is generally pretty good. Before pulling the trigger, you'd want to verify that engine rebuild. Ask for receipts and documentation. Check for the usual rust spots these are prone to, and make sure all the electronics are working. If everything checks out, this could be a solid entry point into El Camino ownership, especially if you're looking for something a bit more economical than a V8 model. 10. Let's talk about this 1970 Chevy C10 that's up for grabs at $8,500. This one's got some interesting features that make it worth discussing. We're looking at a truck with its original drivetrain, the 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, which is a solid, reliable combination that these trucks are known for. The odometer shows 130,000 miles, which isn't bad for a 53-year-old workhorse. And it's been with the same owner for 16 years, which usually means someone's been taking care of it. What's cool here is that it came equipped with factory AC, power brakes, and power steering. That's a nicely optioned truck for 1970. Now, being honest, the AC isn't working, but everything else is functioning according to the seller. They're also throwing in lots of extra parts, which could be really valuable depending on what they are. At $8,500, you're looking at a fair price for a running, driving C10 from this era, especially one with its original drivetrain and power options. These trucks have been climbing in value, but this one's still priced in the reasonable range for a driver quality example. If you're interested, you'll want to check the usual rust spots these are known for, particularly around the cab corners and rocker panels. But given the long-term ownership and the fact that it's still running good, this could be a solid buy for someone wanting a classic truck they can actually use while gradually improving it. Just remember to respect the seller's request about no late calls. That's usually a sign of someone who's serious about selling. 11. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1948 Ford F1 that's up for $18,000. This isn't your typical stock vintage pickup. We're looking at a seriously upgraded classic with modern running gear. Let's break down what's been done. The truck's running a fresh 351 Windsor V8 paired with a C4 automatic transmission. That's a solid, reliable powertrain combo. The suspension has been modernized with a Mustang II front end, and it's got a Ford 9-inch rear end, which is basically the gold standard for rear axles. They've upgraded to four-wheel disc brakes, installed a new wiring harness, new fuel tank, and even added some nice aesthetic touches like a stainless steel grille and new front fenders. Now, being completely honest here, there are some things that still need attention. The seller's upfront about needing transmission cooler lines, brake lines, and some minor wiring work, distributor, and brake light switch. There's also an issue with header clearance against the steering column that needs addressing, either with a power steering box or modified linkage. The heater situation also needs to be finalized. At $18,000, considering all the modern upgrades and the fact that it's a registered, insured vehicle that's nearly complete, you're in the ballpark for a significantly modified 48 F1. These first-generation F-Series trucks are highly desirable, and this one's got the bones to be a reliable driver once those final items are sorted out. 12. Let's talk about this 1970 Dodge D100 that's listed for $4,900. This is one of those classic workhorses that's got some interesting features worth discussing. The truck's powered by Dodge's legendary Slant 6 engine paired with a manual transmission. And let me tell you, that Slant 6 is known for being nearly indestructible. The seller's done some recent fuel system work, including a rebuilt carburetor, new metal gas lines, and a new fuel filter, which suggests they're addressing the issues you'd expect from a truck that was parked for a while. One interesting feature is that utility bed. That's not the standard pickup bed you usually see on these, which could make it more valuable for someone looking for a functional classic. The odometer shows 1,000 miles, but given the age, that's likely after rolling over or from a replacement cluster. Being straight with you here, $4,900 for a running and driving D100 with a utility bed isn't unreasonable in today's market, especially with the recent fuel system work. These aren't as common as their Ford or Chevy counterparts, which makes them stand out at car shows. However, since it was parked for a period, you'll want to check all the usual revival points: brakes, suspension components, seals, and especially rust spots. The fact that it's driving now is promising, but these old trucks often need some additional TLC after sitting. If everything checks out mechanically, this could be a unique classic truck that you could actually put to work while enjoying its vintage charm. 13. Let's talk about this 1984 Chevy K10 that's up for $10,000. This square body has an interesting history that's worth diving into. Here's what makes this one unique. It started life as a 6.2 diesel, but got a heart transplant around 2004-2005 with a Goodwrench 350 V8. That's actually a smart conversion, as the Goodwrench 350 is known for being a reliable, no-nonsense engine that's easy to maintain and find parts for. The seller mentions they rebuilt the axles at the same time as the engine swap, which is a good sign of thorough maintenance. It's a long wheelbase model with a manual transmission, which is a desirable combination for these trucks. The odometer shows 150,000 miles, but with these old squares, it's the condition that matters more than the miles. It comes with some nice extras: an aluminum canopy with all glass intact, that's getting rare to find these days, and a toolbox. At $10,000 with the seller open to offers, you're in the ballpark for a well-maintained square body, especially one with documented major work like the engine swap and axle rebuilds. These trucks have been steadily climbing in value, and finding one with a clean title and a solid drivetrain isn't as easy as it used to be. 14. Let me give you the straight scoop on this 1972 Chevy K5 project that's listed for $22,500. We need to talk about some important details here, because this one's got some significant factors to consider. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. This K5 has a salvage title, reportedly from being written off years ago when these weren't worth much. It's also been converted from its original 4x4 configuration to 2WD, which is a pretty major change for a K5 Blazer. Now for the interesting stuff, It's got a 5.3 LLS engine and 4 L60E transmissions sitting in it, but they're not hooked up yet. The ECU is included, which is crucial for that LS swap. The seller claims the body is extremely solid with no patch panels and perfect floors, which is rare for these old Blazers. It's got the desirable bucket seats and console interior, which is a plus for collectors. However, there are some issues. The windshield is. If you're interested, you'll want to thoroughly verify the body condition claims and carefully consider the work and additional cost needed to complete the LS swap. This could be an interesting project for someone who specifically wants a 2WD Blazer with modern power, but make sure to factor in the salvage title when considering resale value down the road. You might want to negotiate that price given the incomplete state and title status. 15. Let me tell you about this seriously modified 1979 Chevy Silverado that's up for $11,000. This isn't your average square body. Someone's put some real thought and work into this one. Let's break down what we're looking at. The truck's running a GM Goodwrench 350 with only about 10K miles on it, paired with a rebuilt TH350 transmission. That's a bulletproof combo right there. But what's really interesting is all the custom work. They've done a proper lowering job with drop spindles and a coil cut up front, plus an axle flip in the rear. Those J.C. Whitney 70s rear adapters and GM fenders give it a unique look. The attention to detail is impressive. We're talking about a powder-coated frame, that's not cheap, completely redone interior with new seat foam and upholstery, new rubber mat, door cards, and dash. They've even added some modern touches like wireless solar cab lights and a clever floor-mounted center console cooler with cup holders that can double as an armrest. At $11,000, considering all the work that's gone into this truck, and the fact that it's got good glass, new body seals, and apparently cruises like new, you're looking at a fair price for a well-executed custom square body. The odometer shows 66,234 miles, but with all these upgrades, the original mileage is less relevant. If you're in the market for a lowered classic truck that's been thoroughly gone through and modernized while keeping that classic vibe, this could be a solid buy. Just make sure to inspect all the custom work in person and verify that the lowering was done properly. These kinds of builds can be fantastic when done right, and it sounds like this one was done thoughtfully. 16. Let's dive into this 1965 Chevy C10 long bed that's listed for $15,000. This one's got some interesting performance upgrades that make it stand out from your typical classic pickup. Under the hood, we've got a rebuilt 350 small block that's been built with some serious hardware. Flat-top pistons, double roller timing setup with a camshaft, those desirable camel hump heads, and a Holley 4-barrel carb. It's paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, which keeps that old-school driving experience intact. The odometer's broken, but the seller mentions low miles since the engine rebuild. They've done some solid maintenance work too. Rebuilt front suspension, new carpet, fresh brakes, new tires, and they've even redone the wood in the bed. Being used as a weekend driver suggests it's been maintained and actually driven, not just sitting in a garage collecting dust. At $15,000 OBO, you're in the right ballpark for a well-maintained 65 C10, especially one with performance upgrades and recent maintenance. The long bed version might not be as sought after as the short bed, but it's more practical if you're actually planning to use it as a truck. If you're interested, you'll want to check out how well those engine mods were done and listen for any unusual noises from that built motor. Having a clean Nevada title is a plus. These trucks from dry states tend to have less rust issues. While it's described as a project or keep it how it is, it sounds more like a solid driver that you could either enjoy as is or continue to improve over time. Don't forget that OBO in the price. There might be some room for negotiation. 17. Let's talk about this 1977 Chevy Cheyenne that's listed for $5,000. I need to be completely upfront here. This one's going to need some love and attention. The seller's honest about the situation. This truck has been sitting for over a year since her husband passed away. While it was reportedly running when parked, anyone who's dealt with vehicles knows that sitting idle for that long can create its own set of issues. We're looking at a 4x4 model with a V8 and automatic transmission. which is a desirable combination when everything's working. Being listed in fair condition and considering its dormant state, you'll need to factor in some revival costs. At minimum, you're probably looking at a new battery, fresh fluids all around, fuel system cleaning, and possibly new tires if they've flat spotted from sitting. There could also be seized brakes, dried out seals, and other issues typical of vehicles that have sat unused. At $5,000, you'll want to negotiate considering the work needed to get it roadworthy again. These square-body Cheyennes are desirable trucks, and values have been climbing, but this one's definitely a project. The clean title is a plus though. 18. Let's talk about this eye-catching 1979 Chevy Scottsdale C10 pickup that's currently listed for $10,800. This classic long bed truck comes in a striking orange color and has covered 96,000 miles over its 44-year lifetime. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, sending power to the rear wheels, a classic American truck setup. The seller presents this Scottsdale in excellent condition, and based on the description, it seems to be a well-maintained example. Standing 6 feet tall and stretching 18.5 feet long, it's got that commanding presence that vintage trucks are known for. The clean title and up-to-date registration are definitely positive points for potential buyers. For context, these C10 Scottsdales are becoming increasingly desirable in today's classic truck market. While $10,800 isn't cheap, it's worth noting that well-maintained examples of these trucks have been climbing in value. However, as with any classic vehicle, I'd strongly recommend a thorough in-person inspection to verify the condition and mechanical health before making any decisions. The 350 V8 is known for its reliability and strong torque, making these trucks both practical and enjoyable to drive. Plus, parts availability is generally good, which is always a bonus for a classic vehicle. If everything checks out mechanically, this could be a solid investment in a piece of American automotive history. 19. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Dodge W150 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has listed this classic pickup truck for $8,900, which seems like a fair price considering the vehicle's condition and modifications. According to the seller's description, this Dodge W150 is in good condition, with 89,000 miles on the odometer. It's powered by a 318 5.2-liter V8 engine, which is paired with an automatic transmission and a four-wheel drive system, making it a capable off-road vehicle. The truck has been fitted with several aftermarket parts, including BFG tires, an Edelbrock carburetor, a Holly Street Performer intake, a 3-inch exhaust system, an aluminum radiator, and Fox 2.0 shocks. These modifications suggest that the vehicle has been well maintained and upgraded for improved performance. Other notable features include LED headlights, a bed liner, a tailgate pad, a roll bar, and off-road lights, which all add to the truck's functionality and aesthetic appeal. The seller mentions that the truck has a clean title, which is always a good sign. They also describe the vehicle as clean and reliable, indicating that it has been well cared for and is in good running condition. Based on the information provided, this 1985 Dodge W150 seems like a solid choice for anyone in the market for a classic pickup truck with some tasteful modifications. The price appears to be reasonable, considering the vehicle's condition and the work that has gone into upgrading it. 20. We're taking a look at a 1978 Chevy C10 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has listed this classic pickup truck for $20,000 or best offer. According to the seller's description, this Chevy C10 has a clean title and has been equipped with a double-tank setup, which is a nice feature for those who need extra fuel capacity. The vehicle has an automatic transmission and runs on gasoline. However, it's important to note that the seller mentions the truck needs to be tagged and smogged, which suggests that it may not be currently road legal. This is something potential buyers should keep in mind and factor into their decision-making process. The seller also states that the truck starts up but has been sitting, indicating that it may have been unused for some time. As a result, the vehicle will likely need some TLC, tender loving care, to get it back into top shape. This could involve addressing any mechanical issues, cleaning up the interior and exterior, and performing general maintenance. With 200,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear that this truck has seen its fair share of use over the years. While high mileage isn't necessarily a deal breaker, it does suggest that the vehicle may have more wear and tear than a lower mileage example. Given the information provided, the $20,000 asking price seems a bit high, especially considering the work that may be needed to get the truck in roadworthy condition. However, the seller has indicated that they are open to offers, so there may be some room for negotiation.